Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the stars above us for the weekend. Happy Friday to everybody, or Friday, as we like to say, as we celebrate the weekend. And I always count my weekend starting on Friday as, I don't know, that's the day I meet with you. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all my weekends are 3-day weekends. I kind of like it that way. Even though I'm working, it's okay. Today we have a lot to talk about. Remember at the beginning of the week, Monday, when we met, and I was talking about how much there was happening this week. Well, we are in that part of the week where there is so much happening, and we'll have quite a bit to talk about, especially today with Mars turning retrograde and moving right into what has already been occurring as a Mars-Pluto opposition. Pluto sitting at 0 degrees of Aquarius is exactly opposite Mars, and they're 6 degrees separated at this point in time, but that's like drop in the bucket when we're talking Pluto. Some astrologers give Pluto up to 15 degrees of influence before we don't count it anymore. So, with 6 degrees of separation between Mars and Pluto, they are definitely sitting in an opposition. And we'll talk more about that. The first opposition happened back in November 3rd, interestingly enough, just before the election here in the USA. And of course, the next one will occur shortly, and we'll talk about all of that. Today, as well, Venus is moving into the sign of Aquarius. And I hope to show you that through both the astrology and a chat about that, but as well through the human design gates that she will be hitting. Aquarius human design gates are very fascinating to me as they all seem to point toward the future, but a future that begins in conservation and then moves to imagination and on until we get to a literal rebellion or revolution energy that then shifts momentum. So it's an interesting sign to talk about. And then, as well, tomorrow, Neptune turns direct, and a planet that changes direction is often very intense at that particular period of time, whether it's stationing to turn retrograde or if it's stationed to turn direct. It just changes the energy that we're feeling. When we look at a planet like Neptune, an outer planet, it spends a good deal of time in retrograde every year. So it's not like a Mercury retrograde that's happening to us all the time, off and on, off and on. It's more elongated than that. So we have longer period of time when we're feeling the effects of that planet in retrograde or in direct motion. But what I really want to look at is the gate that it's sitting at, because for the entire month of December, Neptune, and probably even earlier if I got my book out and looked, it has been sitting in the gate of turbulence or crisis. In quantum human design, we call it turbulence, I believe. And is that right? And in traditional human design, it is called the gate of um, crisis. It is called exploration in quantum human design. That gives it a little bit of a gentling feel, um, but it still doesn't take away from the fact, I think it's in the gene keys that it's turbulence in the shadow. And there's something to be said for a planet stationing at a gate that's called crisis or turbulence, or even if you want to call it exploration, for an extended period of time, because it really informs the energies that we will be feeling. So I want to talk more about that. And if we have time, I want to go into the Jupiter Saturn waxing square, which when I had Tam on the show last week, we talked a bit about, as it is the first square since Jupiter and Saturn had their conjunction back on the winter solstice in 2020. And what does all that mean, right? Because the tensions begin to become apparent. The need for some kind of change begins to become apparent. So it's an interesting combination. And as well, we have this handful of planetary transits that are occurring. from, let's see, today's Mercury in a square to Saturn, and tomorrow Venus opposing Pluto, as well as the Sun opposing Jupiter. Sorry, Venus conjunct Pluto and the Sun opposing Jupiter tomorrow. And then Sunday, blessedly, quiet, right? But how can it be quiet really when the weight of all of these different things has come upon us? So, totally an interesting time that we are in. So, let's just say a quick good morning to people who are showing up here. Good morning, Terry. I saw you out there. Diana says she was a little early, and that was okay. I'm actually in the studio usually about 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time so I can see what's going on. So you weren't too early. I just, didn't I don't think you see anything that I could say to you. Good morning, Joan Durchie. It's good to see you. Corey, hello. Natasha, good morning to you. Peggy Ann Mulcahy, happy to see you with us. Teddy, good chilly morning. No shake here. Right? Interesting day yesterday. We'll talk about that in a minute. Asa, good morning. Jamon, good morning. Teddy says, glad our California and Oregon relatives are okay. They all are. Nobody was damaged too badly in that earthquake, if they even felt it. It was, off the coast of Oregon, actually off the coast of Northern California. And those earthquakes tend to, um, you know, impact the coastal areas and cities, but not so much as you get inland. Good morning, Pamela, or Pam Z. Good morning, Colleen. Happy freezing Friday. I heard the East Coast is shivering. Catherine Worcester, good morning. Kajella, good morning. And Christine Buckingham, good morning to you. And for anybody else out there who's not checking in with us yet, thank you for joining me and welcome to the show. So let's dig in, shall we? Because we have a lot that we can actually talk about. And some of the stuff, we've talked about before, but there are these layers to understanding everything that's happening, from an astrological point of view. And when you take your blender and you're getting ready to make a smoothie, let's say, and you've put in the ice and you put in the milk or the juice or whatever you're putting in, plus the veggies or the fruits and all of that, right? So before you actually blend it all up and make it into something, it's this, layered kind of mess. And that's kind of what we look like right now astrologically, with this layered mess of things that are waiting to become something new, waiting to become blended into a smoothie or, juice drink. Uh, so in the meantime, right, they're sitting there, they're piled upon us, and there's pressure, right? Each layer added is pressuring the layer below. So when we start to talk about things that are going on, it's not it's not necessarily something that just happens today, right? None of the things that we're talking about today really are just for the day. They really begin a process of this pressure to change, right? And that starts with each of us individually, but that leads out to our community level, family levels, and on, right out into the countries, the communities, the countries, and the world, right? So the whole shebang, right, is in this pressure to change, right, or to evolve. That would be another word that we could use here for this. And today, as Mars turns retrograde, he turns retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo, moves backward into Cancer, and he's in retrograde from December 6th today until February 23rd of 2025, which means that he's forming a pretty much prolonged opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. And as I said at the very beginning of the show, we give wide orbs to Pluto, especially when there are powerful things like oppositions that are occurring. And Mars being a personal planet, the planet of action, the planet of conflict and confrontation against Pluto, who is, the major transformer in the world, or in our world, in our reality, then we have this prolonged effort to create change or transformation on the planet and in our communities, in our countries, and in each of us, right? And it's a fairly rare thing to have this last so long, right? An opposition to Mars typically would last maybe a few days, maybe a week. Um, but because Mars is moving through a retrograde phase, this becomes more like a 6-month affair. right? So we are spinning it out, taking out, this longer period of time. And it actually started in early of 2024, November 2024, excuse me. That was when Mars was first moving into the sign of Aquarius through the last degree of Cancer. And at that point, Pluto was at the last degree of Capricorn, the exact opposite sign. So we've already started this opposition. And we can characterize that opposition as being between the nurturing energies of Cancer and the home, the traditions, the family energies of Cancer, and the more governing government, um, corporate, institutional energies of Pluto and Capricorn. So we have the opposition, which always means one side or the other is getting its say, right? Not both, right? Not both, because if you move in one direction, you're in that direction. There's no going back. It's not like a square where there's a choice as to, with a square, you come to a fork in the road, and that fork in the road allows you to turn left or right or go straight, even if you want to, if that is your choice. But in opposition, we can only go one way or the other. We either go the way of the corporation, of the government, of the institutions that have been placed, and that would be, what Pluto was picturing to us at 29 Capricorn, or we go the way of the individuals, of the families, of community level, and that would be that Cancer side. And now, of course, we're seeing the opposition across Pluto in Aquarius and Leo being the sign that Mars is in. So now we have a different form of struggle. We have a struggle between self-expression and the voice of the people or the group or the community, if you will, or the country, right? The big group versus the individual. So the opposition is just so fascinating if you really start to break it down. So the key themes, if we look at the key themes of Pluto in the opposition to Mars, or Mars in the opposition to Pluto, we have a reevaluation of power dynamics that are happening right now. You're in it, and this will be over a period of time. Mars represents that active, actionable part of ourselves. It's assertive energy, and opposing planet Pluto, which is all about transformation and power. So we have a challenge that is being laid down to existing hierarchies, right? The existing levels from top down, bottom up. It's usually top down, right? And this aspect then is going to be encouraging all of us, from, the little person to the group, to have a critical examination of authority and institutions, and potentially leading us to significant reforms in those institutions, right? In those traditions, even that we've held dear. And during this period of time, we have Pluto in Aquarius, which is the sign, as I said, of the group, or of the community. And in Aquarius, there is an intensified social movement energy that is just only beginning to be seen. And the retrograde motion of Mars through Leo and then back into Cancer suggests that we have this period of introspection now, regarding, our personal but also our collective identities, and how it is that we're going to be the fuel, or fuel future social movements and address systemic issues in both, our communities and our country. And the idea behind Pluto and Aquarius would be to promote and establish more equality, and to redefine what it is to be normal in a society. What are the societal norms? What are we willing to say is okay, right? And if you can't see that out there, tell me, and I'll think of a couple of ideas that I can give you in terms of what some of those societal norms are that are being redirected. And then there's also the technological and the ideological shifts that take place during this period of time. Pluto's transit through Aquarius really emphasizes innovation and progressive thinking. It's future faced, right? It's the face that's looking out to the future, and the tension with Mars could accelerate technological advances, maybe ideological shifts, and that prompts all of us to adapt to new paradigms. And those paradigms might be in communications, right? How do we communicate? And that might, lead into social networking. It might lead into our, technology and our phones and our TVs and the news media, information systems, all of that. New paradigms in governance, in government, and in governance. I mean, this week has been a wicked week, right, in terms of governments, not necessarily in our government, but South Korean president enacting martial law one day and then later that day turning it back. The French government fell this week. It has been a week of prompting of uh, adapting to new systems, right? New things. And it also will help change things at the community level, where at this point, there's a lot of potential for what we call grassroots movements or community movements. And it is really a time for everyone as we move into this future to find your tribe, find your peeps, right? Find the people that you resonate with and work to build that community feeling or that familial feeling, because that is where the protection, the power, and everything is into the future, right? One of the reasons why the things are changing governmentally is because it is too centralized, right? Too centralized. And Pluto in Aquarius and now Mars catalyzing this action starts to bring in the margins, right? So the power moves to the outer circle and not that inner central circle. So it's kind of fascinating to watch all of it play out in the world. Um, and it gives me so much more peace around the things that have happened, you know, via the election here in this country, but also makes more sense in terms of things that are happening all around the world. Now, the evolutionary implications, because there are evolutionary forces at work here. And of course, these are forces that we really don't control, right? Evolution is evolution, right? You're participating in it, but it's not under your control. And one of the personal transformations that we might see is, first of all, this heightened inner conflict that you might be feeling, and it compels us then to look deeper, to dig up what's going on within us and what is requesting or demanding, commanding change within us. And that could be us looking at wounds, core wounds. It could be us looking at deep-seated fears and deep-seated desires even. Right? What is it that we keep squelched down? Because this period of time offers us an opportunity to grow through self awareness and release any of our outdated behavioral patterns, right? Anything that's been holding us back is out the window or potentially, right? But we also have a collective evolution that is potential here at this time. On a societal level, this Mars opposition Pluto catalyzes collective awakening. So if you're feeling like more and more people are kind of waking up and going, oh, hey, what's going on? Um, that is happening, right? That we're awakening. And communities might unite to challenge oppressive systems. I see that kind of happened here, advocating for transformational changes that align with humanitarian values. I don't know that that part has happened yet, right? The scary part of what's happened in this country is the untethering of that humanitarian feel that this country has always had. And yet, it's shifting in some way, shape, or form. So, how do we navigate this very long term sort of transit that is occurring? First of all, is to embrace change, right? We can't fight against the change. We can try, but that's such a waste of energy, right? So recognize that resistance to transformation can lead to increased tension, increased anxiety, and that feeling of, your heart palpitating, your stomach, just in a turmoil. So embrace change with an open mind, and that can help facilitate a smoother transition and also personally empower you, right? Just embrace what's happening. It doesn't mean that you're stamping an okay or an approval on things that you see out in the world that aren't correct, but just know that sometimes those things are the lead in message before there's an awakening that says, oh, wait, what are we doing? Right? We have to change this. Cultivate patience then, right? Patience is another one of those little tools on your pocket or in your pocket. Given the extended period of time that this transit is going to be in place, patience is essential. And you just have to allow these processes to unfold naturally. Avoid being impulsive yourself, because that can lead to, unnecessary conflicts in your life, or, like turning upside down your whole entire life. Channel the intense energies into constructive endeavors, things that you can do that facilitate a change, a transformation in the direction that you want to see things go in, right? There are opportunities here, right? To, um, as a person, in your personal life, to transform through community service, through becoming an advocate for something, a creative project that harnesses your transformation potential, right? You're not a victim in all of this, so I don't mean to make it sound like just because you don't really have control over the bigger evolution, it's not that you're a victim of it either, right? Choose how it is that you're going to behave in this time, right? So, in summary, Mars's retrograde opposition to Pluto, it is heralding a significant evolutionary phase for humanity. This isn't just little. The problem is we're right in the thick of it, so it's hard for us to have any kind of objectivity about what's going on. 20 years hence, we'll look back and we'll go, "Oh, that's why that had to happen." And yet there's this feeling that the direction that life is taking us, or that evolution is taking us, helps our society, our collective humanity, emerge more resilient and aligned with more progressive values as time goes on. It's like we have to shake the roots of the tree, right? We have to shake all the yuck out of the tree before we can create the new growth. Now, if we take a look at this in human design, it even becomes more crystallized as to what is happening here. Mars, through the whole month of December, is sitting at the gate 31 in your human design, which is called the gate of leadership. And it's not just leadership, it's democratic leadership, right? It's really framed around the will of the people and choosing of a leader through voting, or, like consensus, right? And it's opposing Pluto, who we've already talked about several times, is sitting and has been for the long term sitting at the gate 60, which is called the gate of conservation. So it has a very more constrictive feel to it, right? It's like taking all the fat and trimming it away. So what you're left with is the fillet, right, in the middle. And the 31 leadership is where Mars is. So a lot of the action is being taken place on the leadership level. And, that's leadership in a country, leadership in a community, or an institution, an organization, in your family, etc. Right? We're all leaders in some way in our lives, right? We may not all be the president of the country, but we are all somewhat the leader in our own worlds, and you're the leader in your own life. So the gate 31, Mars, is leadership through influence, through clarity, and through communication. It is an energy that really, puts forth ideas and leads through recognizing the responsibility of all parties to participate in the leadership experiment called democracy, right? So all of us are participating in this. And the gate really becomes a gate about guiding others by being a clear voice for the collective. And that then helps the leader align with the values and the purpose that the collective is moving toward. And Mars at 31 amplifies the assertive leadership energy aspect of this, right? The assertive, the almost aggressive way things are playing out. And it's the drive to step into roles of influence where we want to be able to influence the dynamic. And you can almost just sense what the challenge is here, right? And the challenge is the potential to misuse influence or to misuse power and to fall into reactive leadership that's driven by ego rather than the service to the collective, right? That's this challenge that we're facing at this moment. Now, when we look at gate 60, which by the way is on the sacral center or on the root center, excuse me, moving toward the sacral, the gate 60 operates from this energy of the root where it processes the tension between limitation on one side and the gate 3, its opposite, which is innovation on the other side. And Pluto here is bringing a profound transformation, almost a push, if you will, to society to reevaluate the structures and the limitations that define us. And you see it, right? What is that? The DOGE, Department of, somebody help me. There's a new like bureaucracy being birthed that will look at the bureaucracy and decide how to trim it up, right, or to reevaluate the structures and the limitations of all of the bureaucracies of all the big institutions. Now, the challenge here again, abuse of power, right? Is a distinct potential here to abuse power, but also um, to resist changing the things that need to be changed, either because I'm too constrained and I don't want to change them, or I throw over the whole system at the other end and attempt to start from scratch. So, on one end, it's very chaotic, and on the other end, it's very stuck or rigid. And we have to find the middle ground here, almost so difficult to do in an opposition like this, right? With Pluto and Mars on the other end. So, it is distinctly possible that we're either going to see likely we're going to see some things upended completely, and on the other end, things that should have been upended, not touched at all. And it bears watching, right? And watch this in your own life as well. So if we look at the opposition in this, right, we have leadership meets limitation, right? These are opposites. So we're looking at how do we revolutionize leadership? If you've ever listened to Richard Rudd speak about um, the future, and he sees it as a synarchy. And that's literally a different gate in human design. There is, or a gate in gene keys that is the gate 44, where we move from this idea of teamwork and working in teams to a synarchy, which means that together we rule, right? Together we rule. And every time I hear him talk about it, I get this feeling of like the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, right? Where there was representation and all voices were heard equally, right? Nobody's voice was, shunned or shut off or not listened to. So it's a really interesting idea to revolutionize leadership to where the leader isn't authoritarian, isn't just, you know, making conditions that people can live under, but is instead listening to the wider voice, right? Listening to the voice. So Mars at gate 31 really energizes the need for new voices of leadership that can inspire and guide the collective. However, Pluto in gate 60 is demanding that leadership respect the limitations of the current systems that we're in and to do a careful yet sustainable transformation, right? Re- Trying to avoid throwing out the baby with the bathwater. In some cases, that is what you need to do. But if we did that everywhere all at once, can you imagine the chaos? Well, I can. And with Neptune sitting at a gate called chaos, I imagine that is exactly what we're going to be getting. But let's finish our conversation here before I get to that one. We have a distinct pressure to transform systems and structures, and especially things that are so ingrained that they get encrusted, right? They get sort of stuck in this old paradigm, and they're not doing any good. They're not necessarily doing bad, but they're just not doing maybe what it is that we envisioned that they would do. So Pluto at the gate 60 then challenges leaders to confront where existing structures, government, businesses, cultural norms, things like that, have been stagnant or where they've been overly restrictive, and let them loose, right? Mars in gate 31 amplifies the collective call for leaders who can articulate a clear vision for change, right? And you might think of this as something that has already happened, but that it is also continuing to happen, right? We had our election here, but look at what's going on in other countries around the world. So the key question we might ask ourselves is, what limitations need to be overcome, and how can leaders or leadership effectively guide this transformation, right? We're looking for ways in which we can do this. Sometimes, again, we have to do it in a very big way in order to reformat what we want to do. And by the way, the root center where the gate 60 is, those are format energies, we call them in human design. So it's interesting, right? The format is being upended, right? We also have to balance Mars assertiveness and aggression with restraint. And that can be very difficult, except Mars will be in retrograde, so his little wings are cut a little bit, clipped a bit, if you will. But Mars' assertive, action-driven energy in gate 31 can feel very frustrated in retrograde, because Pluto at gate 60 is actually calling for patience, a little bit of introspection, right? Let's think about this. How do we make this program, this bureaucracy, this institution more sustainable? How do we trim it but not throw it away, right? Or how do we reinstitution it? How do we reimagine it? And this this sort of tension is reflected in the struggle between the desire for immediate action, let's do it now, and the need for deliberate transformation. And deliberate kind of looks like a strategy, right? How do we take one step at a time? So, we want to ask our leaders, how can you act decisively, but without um, dishonoring natural timing or the limitations of change, right? Changing too far too fast. So we have shadows and we have gifts in these two gates, because that's what, this is what I really love, is that the gene keys gives us this idea of what's the highest expression in these gates and what is the lowest expression in the gates, the shadow energies. So if we look at the shadow energy of Mars sitting at the gate 31, it is leadership driven by ego or manipulation, even. And it's a person that's seeking personal power versus the collective good, right? So the shadow of the 31 is a leader that is not really in service to the collective, but is more about power, money, greed that they can garner for themselves. Now, the gate 60's shadow is about stagnation, and that's really due to fear of change and or pushing for transformation without respecting any boundaries, right? The need that you have to have a container. You have to have the container to support the growth, if you will, or even the limitation. You have to have the container that's able to hold all of that in the highest expressions, right? We want to know that too. We want to move out of the shadow and into the gift, if you will. And in the 31, where Mars is, that is leadership that's rooted in service. And it inspires, it's an inspiring energy. It inspires people with a clear vision and ethical guidance. Ethics, ethics in government. And then gate 60's gift expression is really about embracing limitation, but as a source of creative innovation, right? That's where it's leading us, to innovation. But we have to use the boundaries, the limits, the container as a springboard for transformation, right? We need the container. If you've blown up a balloon, if you don't put enough air in, it doesn't blow up, right? And if you put too much air in, it blows up. It breaks, right? Explodes. So we have to have the container and the right amount of energy of transformation to make it sustainable. And that is where we're headed, sustainability. All right. Any questions about any of this? I'm just dying to know what you guys think. Let me go back here. La la la. J-Lo, happy Friday to you. Good morning, Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel. And thank you for the reminder. If you're listening out there, please hit the like button or the thumbs up button. Share the video with your friends. Ask people to subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you for that reminder, Debbie. And Narges, good morning. Tina, good morning to you. Terry Strauss, good morning. Londa, peace on earth, goodwill towards men, and goodwill towards humanity. Terry, good morning. Tina says, I love that you just said the little people because it reminds me this also affects children. And we can't forget that. Absolutely. Right? Our little ones. Teddy, thank you for that reminder. J-Lo, thank you. All of you. I think you guys are awesome reminding me of that. Tom, we better late than never. Love to you all. Amanda J, good morning. Ellie Mae M, hello to you as well. Christine, we are facing the oligarch takeover. And Christine, Elon named Dogecoin after his Bitcoin. He fired 80% of Twitter after he bought it. He's ruined it. It is ruined, right? No one really cares about it anymore. Christine Buckingham, but I'm learning very quickly that if you step back and you look in, the changes that are going on are very interesting to watch happen. And if you can kind of look underneath that all and see, okay, well, you know, what needed changing here, right? What needed changing? And, decide, not all transformation and not all change is always good, right? It's not always good, but we don't know it until we change that. So we have to go through the process. So he may be ruining Twitter, but maybe there was something rotten at the core of Twitter, and maybe it can come back energized. We just don't know. Or maybe the changes have been ruinous as opposed to positive, and we'll see the impacts of that as well. Kathy Whitewind Loudon, brought to you by the most moral, financially set, unqualified criminals we've ever had in government. There is that. And when you think about it doesn't matter the party. So, and I don't mean to wax political, but one of the things that has happened in government in general, and it's not just in the US, is corruption. Right? We know that power corrupts and power that's absolute corrupts absolutely. We have already known this, right? Have you ever read Animal Farm, right? That book that I had to read in, like, I don't know, 8th grade, 9th grade. Um, so it does bear speaking to these major changes. And we don't want to give up one corrupt system for another corrupt system. That is not positive change, right? That is not positive. And that will bear out, right? We will see the impact of a new regime coming in that's just taking a different level of criminality into governance. And the people will have their say about that. And we'll see what happens. But we have to shake up the corruption that is there. That's the biggest deal, right? We can't move forward sustainably in the shadow of corruption. So it's an interesting thing to watch happen. And it's scary, right? TJ, I'm with you. Scary. Paulette, good morning to you. Christine Buckingham Elon said we Americans will have to suffer over a few years and then laughed about it. He and Vivek seek to become corporate raiders of the American people. And I guarantee you, the American people, once they start to see that, are not going to be happy about it. And there will be changes. There will be hell to pay. And Colleen says, I agree things need to change, but I will not just sit back and quietly observe. No one said you needed to do that. Step back, yes, so that you have a more detached way of seeing what is going on and evaluating what next steps you take. right? And if you feel compelled, if it is your voice that needs to be heard, then use it, right? Use your voice. But you just need to know that, all of us just running around amok isn't what we need either. Strategize a bit about what we're doing. Tom, it doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. 1984 is a great one too. The book 1984, going to watch V for Vendetta again too, right? Such interesting times that we live in, right? Um, so the call, though, for all of us is about becoming inspired. And, to use a saying or so, the serenity prayer, to change the things that you can and to know the things that you can't. And I'm totally paraphrasing that. There are some things that we have the control over that we can work to change. And then there are some things that are just beyond, right? The grander evolutionary scale that is taking us into a more golden age doesn't happen without this upsetting time that we're in now. So we have to embrace where we are, not fight against it necessarily, but fight for what it is that we want, for what makes sense for us, right? That's what we want. Find something you can fight for, not against, right? That takes us backward. So, the story here of Mars and Pluto is really about the story of leadership evolving under pressure. And it is a voice for new leaders, for leaders to step up who want to lead from a place of a coherence or from a place of synarchy, let's say, of where we are all being heard with respect for each other, respect for the American people or the French people or the Korean people, whomever, right? And then Pluto guidance is all about how can we have a safe container for growth and expansion to happen. And by that we mean we sometimes have to limit somewhat, our actions, our spending, our size of our institutions and things like that in order to be primed for growth as we go down the line. So, this transit invites humanity to rethink how power and leadership are exercised in our worlds and asking what kind of leadership do we need to evolve beyond our current limitations? And the answer lies in aligning assertive action with thoughtful, sustainable transformation. And that's a big ask, right? It really is asking for us to grow up quick, grow up, be a grown up. All right. We talked a bit about Venus in Aquarius. I think it was on Monday, or maybe it was last Wednesday when we did the overview of December. But today, as well as Mars moving retrograde, Venus moves into Aquarius, and it brings a kind of fresh air into innovation and into our relationships, our values, and our finances. And the Aquarian energy really emphasizes freedom, individuality, forward thinking, and how we connect with one another and prioritize based on our values and what we value. So, Venus in Aquarius themes are kind of about unconventional relationships or unconventional connections that we have, innovation in our values, up leveling, upgrading, taking a look at what are our values and have we strayed too far to the left or to the right of them, and how do we get back in alignment with our values, redefining what is meaningful for ourselves, and valuable. What is it that we want to take with us, moving on? Creative innovation as well, a time to embrace the uniqueness that you are, right, that you have, and aligning your self-expression in that way. Now, there are challenges, of course. There are always challenges when a planet changes signs. The desire for independence can create tension in relationships, right? With Venus in Aquarius, especially if someone seems to be kind of clingy or has, a lot of emotional dynamics going on in the relationships. And then detachment can emerge as sort of a defense mechanism here. And then that makes it harder to foster emotional intimacy if one person's detaching while the other person's trying to come in with feelings and emotions. You can see already that there's this mismatch energy that could be very challenging during this period of time. As Venus moves into Aquarius, what does she do but enter into today a conjunction with Pluto, also in Aquarius. So both of them moving into 0 degrees. So it kind of intensifies Venus's connection here in the sign of Aquarius. And the high expression would be about transforming our relationships. The high ask here is about partnerships that may undergo some kind of profound shift and helping, each partner perhaps align more fully with their authentic selves. um, a deep reassessment of our values may be undergoing here, being looked at here, so we can align with what truly matters to us, and making our boundaries stronger in terms of what we will stand for and what we won't. There is some real artistic, magnetic creativity going on as well, where we can tap in to some really powerful, transformative, and innovative creativity, right? Uniqueness, pulling out the unique you. And in the low expression, there's always going to be the potential with Pluto to have power struggles, control issues, jealousies, things like that, that surface in our relationships. Maybe there's some over idealism with the Aquarian focus on ideals. It could clash with Pluto's intensity, leading to maybe unrealistic expectations in our relationships, or disappointment in our relationships and partnerships. So we're just balancing emotional freedom and emotional depth, right? We can look at it that way. And Venus in Aquarius, if we look at her through the human design gates, we really get a sort of view of what's going on. And I'm going to share my screen and actually show it to you, because I thought this morning it would be a good idea for us to understand what's happening here. All right, so you guys are seeing my screen, and let me see if I can move that up just a titch since we don't need the head and the ajna so much. And what we have here is the first gate that Venus will be in as she meets up with Pluto, and that's the gate 60, right? We've just talked a lot about the gate 60 and the need for a container, right? The need for limits, boundaries in order to support evolution, change, and growth in a sustainable way, right? So the theme that Venus is bringing to gate 60 is a focus on valuing resources and respecting limitations and our relationships and in our finances, in our values, things like that. This energy then encourages us to be innovative, but within boundaries, right? We don't need to color so far outside of the lines that nobody gets us, nobody gets what's going on. So it might become an inspiration for us to find creative solutions to the challenges that we experience in love or relationships, in money and finances, in the economy, in collaboration with others that we are working with. And the impact here means that we might all feel a call to honor what is sustainable and transformative. Um, and recognizing how limits can really help us grow, right? How they really serve us in a very powerful way, as opposed to being a force of constriction. Even though there is constriction, even though there is contraction, it's to support us in the long range goal of growth and sustainability. Now, the next gate is also on this root center. So, three of the gates of Aquarius are on the root center. So, it is an energy that pressures us to go out and do, but also sets us up for a successful journey, right? That's the potential. Now, the gate 41 is the gate of imagination, and Venus sitting at this gate activates this dreamy quality, this real creative energy. This is the gate that is the human design, that is the demarcation of the human design new year. and it inspires a vision of what could be, what is possible in love with, because this is Venus, in beauty, in creating harmony, in your personal values, in finances and the economy. This gate then is kind of the seed of imagination, and it's where new stories begin, right? A new story. So maybe there's a visionary quality here that we can be impacted with here. That, we have the vision that takes us on into the future. And maybe we can focus, instead of, just manifesting based on old paradigms, maybe we can manifest heartfelt dreams into reality. That's the gift of the 41. The next gate is the 19, and the 19 is a very sensitive gate. In quantum human design, it is called the gate of attunement, and in a way, this gate really helps us to attune to the emotional energy. Even though it's on the root, it's aimed at the emotional center. So it helps us attune to the energetic needs of others, of even ourselves, but it's usually other focused, in a way that can foster compassion and a sort of connection with one another. This gate really wants to belong, to feel like they're a part of a family, community, tribe, country, etc. And it does emphasize the need of attuning to the collective. And it really makes this a good time then, with Venus here, to cultivate intimacy and understanding with one another. So maybe we'll find ourselves more heightened awareness of our roles that we play in community or that we play in the world. And that encourages us to act supportively, and with care to one another. From the gate 19, we jump up to the identity center, where we have the gate 13, which is called the gate of narrative in quantum human design. This is kind of a storyteller's gate, in that it brings the opportunity for us, with Venus here, to reflect on the stories we carry about love and relationships. And this gate really is in traditional human design called the listener, and it invites us to listen and be open in your listening. Listen with empathy and help to rewrite narratives that no longer serve. Right. And you know what I'm talking about. We all have stories that we tell about what we can do, about what our past has impacted us, about how love works for us or doesn't work for us, or how our relationships flop or are filled with conflict and confrontation. So it's a time for us to engage in meaningful conversations, either with others or with ourselves, that help us to reframe our stories, reframe our perspectives, right? And connect in new ways. And then we move back down to the emotional center here at the gate 49. This gate is called the catalyst in human design, or quantum human design. I want to say it's the gate of revolution in traditional human design. It is a gate that focuses Venus's energy on transforming relationships and values based on emotional clarity. This is the emotional center, the solar plexus. And emotional clarity can come with time, and with an idea of shared principles, where groups or relationships are built on things that we share, not that divide us, but that we share. And the gate drives this idea of revolution and change in the ways that we connect, and the way that we harmonize with one another in partnerships. So maybe expecting some breakthroughs in the way that we partner with others, or in how we navigate the personal relationships that we're in, maybe with an emphasis on aligning ourselves more fully with our truths, and with love energy. So that is Venus looking. Oh, she also will spend some time at the 30, and this will happen before she transitions into Pisces. But the gate 30 is called the gate of desire. And it's not sexual desire. This is more about the wants that we have in our lives, who we want to be, what we want in our lives, what kind of relationships, what kind of jobs, careers. It's the very energy of desire, and it's a very amped up energy. It's passion. right? So the last gate that Venus comes into in Aquarius is about passion. And then that carries it into the dreamy qualities of Pisces when she makes that move later in the month, or actually into January, very beginning of January. All right. So, questions about that? Let me take a look back at StreamYard here. Uh, I'll see you later, Tom. J-Lo, her 31 will be activated. Ooh, and that is likely everybody's 31 is going to be activated. Everybody's 60 is activated at this point in time. So we're all playing this game. It's not just, some nebulous kind of community group government. Nope. Everybody is playing this game. Okay. Now I know time is getting short and I really want to talk about Neptune going direct. And Neptune, especially, I want to talk about it in human design. Let me go back to our human design presentation. I should have put this up and I didn't, but I can highlight it for you and show it to you. Right here on the solar plexus is the gate 36. Oh, I can do that. Good. So here is where Neptune is. And it is in the 36th gate 36 in the fifth line, 5. And in human design, the lines add depth, kind of nuance to the energy of each gate, right? It's like, you're driving down the lane or driving down the highway numbered 36, and there are 6 lanes on that highway. And right now, Neptune is in the gate or highway 36 in the 5th lane, right? So Neptune is going to be turning direct tomorrow in the 36.5. And so we get additional insights into how this transit can impact all of us during this period of time. So the theme of the gate 36 first is about turbulence. We talked about, the fact that it's called turbulence in the gene keys, it's called exploration in quantum human design, and it's called crisis in traditional human design. You get the idea that there is some kind of push here, or growth challenges here that we have to work through that are also very emotional because it's on the solar plexus. And the 36 is about navigating the emotional waves that arise when we're stepping into new territory or unfamiliar territory, and that generate crises for us. And it's deeply tied to the energy of transformation and evolution, but through experience. So, experiencing this kind of crisis as we move through these changes, right? And Neptune has been here for quite the while. So you can kind of see how this has been playing out in our world. Now, in the line 5 is, first of all, it's called the fixer in some respects. It is a line that seeks solutions, holds maybe even practical solutions to the challenges. So if we have a gate 36 that is crisis oriented, but it's in the line 5, then there might be, through our leaders or through our own leadership potential, practical solutions that help us navigate crises and the uncertainty of the times that we're in. And sometimes the line 5, people who have the line 5 are seen as saviors or problem solvers or the general, someone that we're going to follow. And that means that this line can also lead to us all projecting outward onto others. And that is, of course, a more negative expression of the line 5, because being seen as a savior, is you abdicating or other people abdicating their responsibility. Or if you're seeing somebody else as a savior, you're abdicating your own responsibility for alignment in your life or changing your life or going through the process of crises. But the line 5 does offer possible solutions that can increase stability and bring us emotional clarity during these chaotic times. So, if we look at Neptune then in the gate 36.5, we might find that we have some extra ability at this time to navigate the emotional waves that are occurring with more clarity. And it amplifies the call for each of us to step into our emotional experiences with courage and with faith that a resolution is possible, faith that things can find a way to move back to peace or to move out of crisis. Line 5 brings us the ability to act as a stabilizing presence for others that then helps guide the collective through the personal crises or the collective crises that we're going through. And this can also be about spiritual leadership and visionary solutions to problems, right? Looking outside of the physical realm for solutions. There's this visionary potential to inspire and to guide others through emotional or spiritually uncertain times. And this is a time then to maybe, look to the spiritual, but then to ground in some very practical solutions, um, you know, holding space maybe for the unfolding of a larger unseen truth that we haven't yet engaged. We might need to balance projection with authenticity, right? We talked about, line 5s bring projections onto themselves or can be a place where we project onto others. And we need, expecting someone else to fix the problem. um, Neptune's direct motion will ask for us to align, realign, to hold your boundaries while navigating emotional dynamics that are occurring, not falling into the crisis mentality, using the crisis instead as a catalyst for growth, any, crises. And literally, Neptune is in this gate through the whole rest of the month of December and into the first days or so of January. So it's a pretty impactful energy. There is so much more I could say here. I am going to stop sharing. There we go. All right. How's everybody doing out there? Can you tell us what organ is affected by Neptune? Ooh. Well, right now, I would say from a solar plexus point of view, it's your gut, right? Your gut. Neptune, as the ruler of the sign of Pisces, would suggest the lymphatic system, right? Our ability to fight off disease or fight off germs, bacteria, etc. But also the feet, right? The feet needing to bring all the higher vibration energy into reality by planting your feet on the ground. So there's that. And um, I can't think of another organ necessarily, because the lymph system, of course, is huge and it goes through the whole of the body. That I think would be, the bigger idea of removing toxins from our systems, from our minds, bodies, spirits, things like that. So there we go. Shoot, he better start shifting late. I don't know what that means. It is my purpose sphere, so looking forward to what will be coming through with the awareness I have now. Awesome. All right, guys, that is it for me today. I hope you all have a great weekend. And even though we're talking about some very trying times and crises, etc., this is energy that is elongated out over the course of 6 months at least, right? So keep that in mind. Some days are going to be more crazy than others, and more crises than usual on a given day, week, or even in a crazy month. But not necessarily something um, that is always going to be your personal job to have to move through. Really, your job is to move through it with as much peace, with as much love, with as much joy as you can muster. All right, that's it for me today, guys. Take care. See you on Monday. Bye for now.